What is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today we're going to be looking at the Nike Renew Retaliation TR3. So it has been a minute since I have done a budget-friendly Nike shoe on the channel, and it is just about time to do another one. I did just drop a budget-friendly training shoe roundup, which is kind of unfortunate because this model came literally the day after I edited and put that together and uploaded to YouTube. So I wanted to include this model. I would have definitely included it in the versatile section. But with all that being said, let's dive into the pros with this model. So the first pro is obviously the price point. At $75 USD, I feel like it's a pretty good price point for what this shoe offers in regard to its construction and its functionality. It's really good for like HIIT training and class workouts, etc. So it's not going to be your best model for heavy lifting, but for the price, I feel like it's a pretty good blend of all the construction elements that go into this shoe. The second pro with this model is I really like the Renew midsole. So it gives you a lot of pop. This isn't going to be the best model for training super heavy in. I would suggest looking at the Metcon line if you're trying to lift heavy, but like for somebody who wants to do some casual lifting, classes, HIIT workouts, etc., the Renew midsole does give you a nice bit of pop. Like it does take a second to break in. Since it is a budget-friendly shoe, you may have to take like a week or so to break them in, but once they get broken in, the midsole I think feeds really well into daily wear, classes, HIIT workouts, lighter lifting, and some casual running. So you could take these on shorter runs, and the midsole doesn't beat the crap out of your feet. My third pro with this model is that I think it's a pretty good option for somebody who wants to take on more athletic focused training, HIIT, and class workout. So I mentioned in the second pro that I like the Renew midsole for those styles of activities, but the reason I like this shoe for that style of training is the mesh upper breathes really well, and the shoe is super lightweight. It has a nice athletic fit, has a little bit of midfoot support here, so across the board, if you want a shoe for more athletic focused training, and you're not trying to spend a ton of money, I think this model is a good bet. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I have noticed with this model. So two cons I could see folks running into with this model is number one, if you are looking for a training shoe or cross training shoe to lift heavier in, this is not going to be your model. As you can see, like the midsole compresses pretty easily, and I cap my loading in this model to around like 225, 275. I would not take your training heavier than that with this model just due to the midsole and how thick it is. One, it has a lot of stack height. Two, it's going to compress fairly easy under heavier loads. This is a shoe designed for more class style training, etc. The second con I have with this model is that the forefoot up here in the toe box is pretty narrow. So if you are looking for a shoe to really splay those toes and have a little bit more width up there in the forefoot, this may not be the best model for you. You may feel a little bit cramped in this shoe. I didn't have an issue with the toe box in this model, but I could definitely see it being a problem for folks who are used to having a bit more room in the toe box in their trainer. So when it comes to performance, I'm going to break this section into a few different parts. We'll talk about lifting, more versatile training, shorter runs, and then daily wear. Now, when it comes to lifting, if you're looking for a Nike shoe to train really heavy in, I would highly suggest looking into the Nike Metcon line. This model is going to be a little bit capped with what it can handle in regard to its loading. I mentioned this in the cons, but I would say cap your loading to 225 to 275 pounds in this model. Anything more, you might start to notice a little bit of compression up here in the midsole. With this Renew midsole, it's going to provide you support for lighter sessions, but when it comes to like heavier barbell work, I would say cap your loading and just note that the shoe is not designed for heavy lifting. Now, when it comes to versatile training, I have really been a fan of this model. I think with more budget-friendly shoes, you never really know what you're going to get. Sometimes they can be a subtle surprise. Sometimes it's like, oh, like I get why this shoe costs what it does. But for versatile training, this model has performed really well. The outsole grips the floor really well, and whether you're moving laterally, forward, or backwards, this model gives you a nice amount of traction. And with that Renew midsole, you get a lot of pop and jumps and whatnot, and you don't feel like you're beating up your feet wearing this, especially for longer HIIT sessions or athletic sessions where you're doing a lot of jumping or a lot of cutting and digging into the ground. So across the board for versatile training, I thought this shoe was a hit. And with how lightweight and breathable it is, for anybody who needs this in like an outdoor or indoor setting where it's really hot, this shoe does a pretty good job at standing up to those tasks. Now, for shorter runs and daily wear, this model I think will work for shorter runs. So if you're that person who wants to wear this to the gym for classes and then tack on a mile or two after or before your workout, this model will do a decent job at tackling that. It doesn't feel overly uncomfortable by any means, and you're going to get a nice level of responsiveness with this midsole. Now, if you run outside in this model and use it for your in-gym sessions, I think it may break down a little bit fast because we do have some exposed midsole layers throughout the forefoot here and through the midfoot. But as a whole, I think if you're running inside on a treadmill with this model, especially shorter distances, distances, it will perform pretty well. For daily wear, this model is pretty comfortable as well. With this midfoot support here, if you have any need for arch support at all on the medial side of your foot, you're gonna get that with this model. And as a whole, like the Renew midsole, as mentioned before, does a pretty good job at providing you with a nice cushioned ride, especially for longer daily wear. So across the board, when it comes to lifting, this model will work for lighter sessions. For versatile training, I think this shoe is a hit, especially for the price point. And then for shorter runs and daily wear, this model will work as well. However, I would say be conscious of the overall durability of the outsole in this shoe, especially with the exposed midsole layers here, if you are training with these outside on asphalt or concrete a lot.
So now let's answer the question, is this model worth it? I think if you are on a budget and you're looking for a shoe that is well under $100 for more class-focused training, HIIT sessions, and more casual lifting, then this model is definitely worth it. It does a fairly good job across the board and it looks pretty dang good for the price point. So it may not be the model that lasts you forever, or it's not going to be super niche for barbell training and heavy lifting, but for those asks that I mentioned earlier, this model is definitely worth it.
So when it comes to sizing and fit in this model, you should be safe going true to size. Now, I did mention that the forefoot is a little bit snug up here. I didn't have an issue with that because there is enough length. However, you may want to go up a half size if you have a wider foot, or if you know for a fact that you like having shoes with a bit more width up in the forefoot. So when discussing price in this model, you can expect to pay $75 USD. Personally, I think that price point is pretty fair for what the shoe offers. And honestly, if you shop around and look at other retail outlets, you might be able to actually find them for less than that. So if you can find them for less than 60, I think that is a steal, especially for the overall aesthetic of this shoe and just the blend of materials that it offers. The shoe can do a lot, and for the price, I think it's pretty fair across the board. So when it comes to weight, drop, and the insole in this model, for a size 10 model, we have a weight of 10 ounces. The shoe has a 4mm heel to toe drop, and the insole does not remove. It has that little bit of adhesive on it, but you can pull that out and put your own orthotic or insole in there if you really want to. All right, let's quickly go over the construction of the Nike Renew Retaliation TR3. Up here on the forefoot, we have an extended outsole layer that wraps up. Overall, I haven't noticed any durability issues there yet, especially with toe dragging. We have a synthetic overlay here for additional durability, and then we have a mesh upper throughout the forefoot running into the midfoot. We have 6 eyelets running up the shoe. We have additional midfoot support here, so as we could see, we have 2 eyelets here that kind of provide a nice overlay and lockdown feeling in this model. The boot itself is decently thick and comfortable. We have a heel tab for pulling that shoe on, and the boot itself has a little bit of structure, so we have a little bit of support there. We have the Nike Renew midsole running throughout, and in the midfoot here, we have a little bit of arch support on the lateral and medial side. Kind of has like a super rep vibe and feel to it in regard to its overall sole construction. Looking at the outsole, we have a full rubber outsole up here through the forefoot. We have a little bit of exposed midsole here, but it's pretty deep, so I don't think we're gonna have too many issues there with durability. And then back here through the midfoot and heel, we do have a bit of an exposed midsole layer here, and that's why I mentioned be very conscious if you plan to run with these outside for longer sessions. But across the board, this outsole provides an adequate amount of traction, and that pretty much wraps up the construction of the shoe. I mentioned that the insole does not remove. There's a little bit of adhesive on it, so it does stick, but you can remove that and put your own orthotics in if you really want to. If you have any questions on this model's construction, hit me in the comments below and I will answer whatever you have. All right, guys, that wraps up my review of the Nike Renew Retaliation TR3. So as a budget-friendly model, I think this shoe holds up pretty well for all the tasks that I basically asked them to do. If you have any questions on this model, hit me in the comments below. And as always, guys, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.